Every revolution has an invisible problem. AI is everywhere. EVs are booming. Batteries are powering the future. But here's the uncomfortable question no one wants to answer. Do we actually know where the materials powering this future come from? Or are we just hoping they are clean, compliant, and real? Today's guest is building for that uncomfortable truth. He believes every material will need a passport, not people, not products, materials. And he is building the system to issue them. Ladies and gentlemen, Balazs Sarkany, co-founder and CEO of TracePass. Balazs, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Highly appreciate it. And hopefully we'll have a productive discussion and provide some information that could be useful to some.
Balazs, you didn't start your career building deep tech platforms. You came up through business, sales, and project management, a world obsessed with timelines, accountability, and structure. So I want to start here. At what point in your journey did you realize the real problem in supply chain of rare materials?
That's actually a great observation. You're right. My background wasn't in coding or system architecture. It was in the room with the decision makers. It was sales, commercial B2B. So the moment wasn't really a single event, but rather a reoccurring realization during my time in sales and project management. I saw these incredible manufactured products, high quality, sustainable materials, and I saw the buyers who were desperate to source ethically and reliably. But there was this invisibility friction between them. I realized that in a globalized economy, trust had become a manual process where we rely on PDFs, emails, and take my word for it, handshakes, site visits. Trust me, things gonna go through here. This is where everything's gonna happen. And we do see it, in some textile companies and such that may be an issue that's became more visible. But the moment of clarity came when I realized the value of a product is no longer in just the material itself, but in the data that follows it. You can have the most sustainable aluminum or the most ethically sourced textile in the world, but if you can't seamlessly prove the journey to the regulators or to the consumers, that value is locked away. I stopped seeing myself as someone who sold materials and started seeing myself as someone who wanted to unlock the truth of those materials. That's why we built TracePass. We didn't want to create just another tech tool, we wanted to create a trust layer for the industry. We saw an opportunity to move from a world of claims to a world of certainty.
Yes.
For us, it's about empowerment. When a company uses TracePass, they aren't just complying with regulatory or corporate strategies, they're finally able to let their product speak for themselves. It's a very positive shift for the whole ecosystem. We are helping honest, hardworking companies showcase their integrity of their work in a way that's never been possible before. We're not just tracking items, we're bringing transparency and provenance to a complex market.
Talking about a journey, what's one belief you had early in your career about how supply chains work, and that experience completely destroyed once in the practical world?
Boy, deep question after deep question. I guess early in my career, I fell into a common trap. I believed that supply chains were a static machine. I thought that if you just set them up right, contracts, chose the right logistical partners, and had a solid ERP system or systems and technologies would run perpendicularly like a clock. No issue, no such thing. Experience didn't just break that belief, it's kind of shattered it. So I realized that supply chains isn't a machine, it's a living ecosystem of information. And in an ecosystem, if we follow the information and it's blocked or kind of unseeable, the whole system becomes a little bit fragile. And if we even, take a look at critical materials, just as a specific example, I think according to McKinsey, 82% of end OEMs, manufacturers like automotive and such, but any manufacturers, do not see below their direct suppliers, and their supply chains are a little bit more complex. You go deep enough, you see that most things come from a couple of companies. So that invisibility problem already existed, and it's just a question of how deep you're digging. And if you dig deep enough, you see that there's no corporate strategy alignment. So in the past, we relied on what it's called islands of certainty. You knew what was happening in between your four walls. But the moment the materials left the warehouse, it entered into this data fog. We used to think that was just the cost of doing business, that certainty, certain level of mystery was expected in the global trade. And I will make a funny remark, maybe take a look at the movie War Dogs on how supply chains for certain companies worked out on the defense space. Good entertainment. Let's call it that. You might be able to draw some connections in general. Just to give a high level, and this is just a quick little connection, it's obviously a Hollywood movie, but the point of it is a group of individuals gained a lot of US government contracts, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to provide ammunition to other groups, let's call it that, and to not shoot the whole system down. And they had restrictions like, this has to be, these materials, these weapons have to be from here and here, and it cannot be from Russia, for example. Well, what they did, they set up a shop in a certain country and they repackaged Russian ammunition, World War II ammunition into US box or different boxes and sold them. And it worked for years. But when it came up and certain realization, they all went to jail and there's all issues. But it just, again, points to the point, there's a difference between tracking a box and tracking what's in the box. But we'll
Yeah.
get to that.
Yeah.
So the belief was kind of shattered at that was the complexity requires mystery. Today, I believe that the exact opposite. The more complex the supply chain, the more simple, transparent the truth behind it needs to be. That's the positive future we're building at TracePass, where transparency isn't a burden, but a competitive advantage that rewards everyone doing the right thing.
Yeah, because supply chain on paper, everything looks elegant, but in reality, they are messy, fragmented, and full of assumptions, right?
Correct. It is an interesting system. And if we just focus on, let's say, commercial, automotive, it's a complex supply chain, but it's more visible. Now let's look at defense. Oh boy, that's even crazier. But at the same time, we have the emergence of AI, different programs that, again, should be able to track this information very easily, very fastly. These are just outdated dinosaur industries that still use PDFs, emails, and in-person meetings. Obviously, it's a positive motion forward that we can introduce these efficiencies, and the technological tools are there. The question is the appetite from the commercial partner, defense partner, and the network is there. And today it seems to be very much so. Not necessarily because it's so much so as wanted, it is needed. It's a need to have. Why? Because if you look at a couple of the cases, without naming let's say a German luxury automotive company based out of Berlin or any other companies, you see that their supply chain got screwed, excuse my language, during COVID, during certain things. And with one of the automotive companies, they didn't have enough copper wiring for the electric displays. So for 2 years, they had to halt their production, hire their workers, and lose 50% of their total revenue. We're talking about gazillions, billions, $30 billion, crazy numbers. So, I mean, obviously you can look at the tanking reports, you will see it, but there's a lot of these public cases for automotive defense.
Absolutely true. And before TracePass, you were deep inside Tailings. What did Phoenix Tailings teach you about the real pain of materials validation that no PowerPoint ever could?
Phoenix Tailings was the masterclass of physicality of truth. When you're working with rare earth metals and critical minerals, these materials that empower everything that functions in electricity. Your cell phone that you have in your hand, no matter what brand, has rare earth in it. EV motors, wind turbines, etc. So anything that functions in electricity has these, and obviously there is a lot of cool application on the defense side, but let's not go into that. But PowerPoint cannot show you what PowerPoint can show you is a clean line from waste side to a finished magnet. It looks easy on the slide, pretty easy to present. But being inside of that process taught me that the purity is the ultimate validation. The process. Phoenix had pioneered the way to extract these materials with zero waste, zero carbon emission, fully closed loop system that allows them to produce in the United States in the most environmentally friendly states like Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and such. It is a beautiful, groundbreaking process that fundamentally changes the way we make these materials and go from, the very hazardous process, which I would encourage the listeners to just Google the sacrifice zone Myanmar to see what's the traditional way of extracting these materials. So every single electric vehicle and such, 97% controlled by China, all the magnets that go into it actually cause more harm to the environment that they would save from. Why? Because the way and the process of these materials that Phoenix Tailings solved is not just hazardous to the environment, it destroys everything it touches. And that's why in the West, it was illegal to produce these materials. And that's why it got outsourced. But Phoenix have sold this, and now they have a clean process, technologically de-risked, ready to go. But, even on their pain point, or even, the pain that I saw was the informational gap that occurs from the point of exchange. I saw how much effort went into proving to a buyer who genuinely wanted to do the right thing, genuinely needed to commercially diversify, that this specific batch of metals was really what we said it was. It was emails, in-person meetings, calls, PDF documents exchanging hands, them coming down to see our site. But we relied on a mountain of manual documentation, human to human trust to carry the weight of this massive technological breakthrough that, again, already is changing the world at a fundamental level, but it's not getting the visibility it deserves. And if it was me, but I'm obviously very biased, so it taught me that without this digital anchor for the truth, without this information, without this visibility, even the most revolutionary physical innovations can struggle to get the credit they deserve. And that was the spark for TracePass. I realized that companies like Phoenix, who are doing the hard work in reimagining how we treat our planet, deserve a platform that makes their integrity undeniable. I moved from the how of making materials to the how of proving them, because I saw that circular economy can't scale on trust alone. It needs a foundation of immutable data. TracePass is designed to be the megaphone for that integrity, ensuring that when a company does the right thing, the market can see it, verify it, and reward it instantly.
Incredible. That's a good statement.
Because objectively speaking, what Phoenix does, their technology is world changing. Was there for 4 years. There's no issue on anything else other than, hey, the current players are trying to obviously put certain geopolitical rivals a chokehold because it's a massive threat. They don't have this technology, they're trying to get it. But at the end of the day, what other proof you need that they are commercially producing in the United States in the most environmentally regulated areas?
Wonderful. And most companies track movement, trucks, containers, shipments. But you say that's not enough. Why is validating the material's journey more important than knowing where the truck is?
Again, another great question, and I would refer to the movie War Dogs to take a look at it. I think from this conversation's perspective, it's a funny way of showing the difference, but they sound very, very similar, but they actually profoundly different. Logistical level visibility is about the container. It is the GPS coordinate of the truck, the timestamp, the loading dock, the where is my stuff. All of it is important, don't get me wrong, but it's essentially tracking a box moving through space. Material level truth is about the DNA. It is what's in this stuff, what has happened to it. The reason material level truth is so much more valuable is that the value of a product today is no longer just its physical utility, it's the data backed by integrity, or the data backed integrity that you're able to provide. If you are a high end car manufacturer, knowing that a pallet of aluminum arrived at your factory on Tuesday is it's good for logistics. But knowing that those specific molecules of aluminum were recycled with 90% less energy than a virgin ore, and that no unethical labor was involved at the source, that is the value. A movement is just a change in location. Journey is a series of transformations. When we validate a journey, we ensure that the digital twin of that material is updated every time it's melted, stamped, or shipped. It creates a thread of truth that standard tracking system completely miss. Logistic visibility tells you that the package arrived. The material truth tells you that the brand promised what's inside of that real package, and it's real. In the world we're moving into with carbon taxes, with EU digital product passport, the new generation of conscious consumers, you can't tax a location, but you can tax a carbon footprint. You can't certify a truck, but you can certify a material. By focusing on the material itself, we are helping companies unlock the hidden equity in their sustainable choices. We're giving them proof they need to turn transparency into a competitive advantage.
Great, great. So is it fair to say that AI, EVs, defense, clean energy, all of it is being built on materials we barely understand the origin of?
So, for example, a wind turbine needs a 1 metric, or at least the one, let's use it as a reference number, 1 metric ton magnet. To put it in reference, let's say a Tesla or an electric vehicle needs, I don't know, maybe a 10 kilogram magnet, tiny. That 1 metric ton, 1,000 kilogram magnet that the wind turbines need that provides this sustainable energy, let's say 70% iron, 30% neodymium, and 1% dysprosium terbium, such much smaller. That is literally, you're saying you destroyed a country, you destroyed an ecosystem that is never going to be recoverable. You put all these crazy chemicals into the waters and fully destroy ecosystem to have one wind turbine up and running. It will never bring enough value back. And that's the fundamental objective truth, that the technologies that are sustainable, these materials that empower, actually do 10 times more harm, if not more, than value they bring to us. And hey, we're branding it as sustainable. No, it's actually worse than anything else you can do. But Phoenix solved this problem. And that's why I encourage the listeners to Google sacrifice zone Myanmar, where a certain geopolitical rival of the US overtook an entire country. And yeah, I will leave it as that. It's covered in certain news outlet because rather not go into that topic.
Let's go big picture.
Okay.
Everyone talks about AI models. No one talks about the materials enabling AI, like you just stated. In your view, how critical are rare materials to the next decade of AI? Not just innovation, but geopolitics, security, and power.
It's funny, we often talk about AI, and I'm a massive fan. I wrote my thesis on Ray Kurzweil. I would encourage everyone to look him up on his prediction and different views of timing of when certain AI evolutions will come. But we often talk about it as it lives in the clouds, this ethereal thing that's made out of code and light. But in reality, it's much more grounded. AI runs on rocks, aka dirt, rare earth materials. Like, it has a solid composition. It is very grounded. In the next decade, rare earth materials like gallium, germanium, neodymium aren't just industrial inputs, they're foundational blocks of digital sovereignty. If you want the most powerful GPUs, the most efficient data centers, the most advanced robotics, you need the purest, best materials. It comes down to even on the semiconductor space to increase GPU's processing speed. We are, bumping into physics as a roadblock. How do we make it smaller, process faster? I do believe, it's built on these materials, and it will come down to, is there, for example, a connection between purity, how high, how warm certain things can get, how much they can process? I do believe that it has something to do, because that's, I guess, what science is. But I am, again, not a technical folk. It just logically makes sense to me.
So AI is being built on rocks.
I feel like it summarizes it. Without those rocks, there's no AI.
See, we have talked about AI chips and rare earth, but let's talk about the thing everyone actually sees on the road, electric vehicles. EVs are being sold as clean, futuristic, intelligent, but they are powered by battery metals, lithium, nickel, cobalt, manganese, pulled from some of the most complex supply chain on the planet, right? So
Bingo.
as EV adoption explodes globally, how worried should we be about the traceability and ethical sourcing of battery materials? And are we scaling EVs faster than our ability to verify what's inside them?
This is the $1 billion question for the next decade. I will try to provide a politically correct answer. It's a valid concern, and it's the one myself and my co-founder Cameron Marsh and our network talks about every day. Are we scaling faster than we can verify? If we are still living in the era of paper trails and best effort audits, I would say we would be in trouble. But let's be positive. What's exciting is that we aren't just seeing the EV revolution, we're seeing the transparency revolution happening in parallel. So we're seeing that, let's say, started in the clothing manufacturing industry, where we started caring how certain things are made and is that the right thing? And once it became visible, certain changes were implemented. So we see this. So right now in 2020, we're at a tipping point. The EU battery regulation is already in motion. By next year, I believe 2027 and January or end of 2026, the new EV batteries sold in Europe will require a unique battery passport. Full stop. So it's a license to operate. It's a need to have, not a nice to have. In the US, the Inflation Reduction Act has created massive incentives for clean supply chains, requiring that 70% of critical materials come from domestic or allied sources this year alone. Will that happen immediately? How does that we shall see, but the right steps, the right signals are happening. So rather than being worried, I am optimistic. We are finally moving away from a world where ethical sourcing was a voluntary marketing slogan into a world where it's a digital requirement for market entry. And at TracePass, we see ourselves as the enablers of this scale. We help companies bridge the gap between their ambitious production goals and their ethical obligations. We don't just think you should have to choose between fast and right. You can do both, and technology allows that to do so. The real magic happens when you realize traceability actually accelerates the transition.
To emphasize on what you said, ethical sourcing is the need of the hour.
Correct. And if we are looking at it just from a, let's say, money or revenue or commercial perspective, every single large corporate already has the risk reduction strategy of a diversified supply chain. And if I go maybe a little bit, too far in the West, it is illegal to have a monopoly in any industry. I forgot what the definition of what percentage they have to own an industry. China owns 97% on the critical material rare earth side.
27%.
I will just rest my case there because obviously if you have a monopoly, you control prices, you can manipulate anything and everything. There's no fair market practice. It kills innovation. I mean, that's in a dictionary, and it's been a topic that has been already walked and seen. It's just been invisible up until now to the public eye, and now we're realizing, this is what we actually made illegal because it's terrible, because it kills everything that we stand for. That actually happened in one of the most important industries. And okay, I will just rest. But again, I see things positively.
Wow. Okay. See, a lot of young people watching this want to build AI. They want to launch startups. They want to work on cool stuff. So here's a perspective question. Why do you believe the biggest innovation opportunity may lie in infrastructure, not apps?
You're talking to someone that has built an application straight out of college, a financial behavioral
Okay.
application, failed miserably, but learned a lot. So what I would say, it's a natural instinct for young builders to want to be at the top of the stack. Building the apps we all touch and all see, get all the credibility, be visible, to use that language. But if I could offer one piece of advice to students today, it would be this. What would be that? An easy sentence would be, let's stick to materials. Apps are the gold, but the infrastructure is the mine. So you can show off that you have beautiful blocks of gold in your hand, or if you focus on the infrastructure, you can own the mine itself. You tell me which one has more opportunity. So in
Okay.
the AI era, we're seeing a gold rush of these applications, appers, externalities.
Yes.
The problem is that apps are often infernal, meaning they can be disrupted overnight by a single update from a platform like OpenAI or Apple. The technological growth is exponential, so what you build as code today, it could be outdated tomorrow. Structure, however, is structural. I believe that the biggest opportunities lie in these infrastructures for three reasons. One, solving the messy middle. We have incredible AI models, but we don't have the plumbing to connect them safely from the physical world to their imaginary, or to the actual cloud, or to the actual AI world or sci-fi that we can use in there. There is a massive gap in how we handle data sovereignty and material truth and the real-time compliance. The second is the rise of physical AI. We're moving from AI that writes poems to AI that runs factories, managers, power grids, traffic, critical materials, traceability, etc. And the third one, the durable moats, meaning infrastructure is hard to build, which is exactly why it's a better business. It requires deep domain expertise in things like logistic regulations, material science. Once you become the standard, the way TracePass is becoming the standard for digital passports, you aren't just a tool, you're the operating system for your industry. What I mean by that, another piece, is when a manufacturer builds a manufacturing line, they buy and build that machinery for a minimum of 8 years. That means, for example, if they say like, hey, we're going to have a new car coming out or something new, it's just going to be a variation of their machinery. Because do you think a large corporation that just invested $2 billion into a new machinery plant going to just leave that asset? No. So that's why when you see these, it is a more stable, less risk containing opportunity, and it makes more money. Now, that's just my take, been on all sides of the coin. And I usually say, instead of having gold in your hand, don't have gold in your hand, just own the mine.
Yes. Own the mind. That's a good phrase.
And And if I may add just the last piece of it to the younger generation, don't just look for a problem that can be solved with a better UI. Look for a broken system that is holding back the entire world, entire industry. You want to change the world, you want to do something meaningful. A better UI is fantastic. I love it. I love apps, build them, still do. Amazing. But whenever it's energy grids or data centers, new payment trails, or AI agents or material level validation, the boring infrastructure is where the most exciting world changing innovations actually happen. And you see the limiting factors of these technologies. If you're able to merge the two and have that collaboration, you will be in a good position. That's, well, obviously I'm biased. I'm just trying to do that.
That's a perfect answer. Let's bring this closer to my home. India is scaling AI, manufacturing clean energy all at the same time. From your global perspective, what role can India realistically play in the rare earth and critical materials ecosystem?
I believe we're witnessing a great reshuffle on the world scale of global powers, and India, as we briefly chatted about, is perfectly positioned to lead certain aspects of it. They already have neighboring data, etc., for the decades and older economies built on massive complex supply chain and legacy system where trust was slow, manual, and often out of date. India has a unique opportunity to be a first mover advantage here for, I would say, three reasons. One of them, skipping the legacy debt. India just skipped an era of landlines, went straight to mobile, skipped physical credit cards, go straight to mobile payments.
That's
It
true.
can skip the era of messy supply chains and paper, whereas go straight to digital. So it has showcased through its history that it's capable of learning from the world and skipping certain steps that, for example, other Western countries need to do. For example, me on the West, I have to adapt to legacy systems, overcome that. And even in 4 years, I had to play with them, build that relationship. And now, okay, we're open to digitizing some piece. If you don't have this hurdle, it's, as they say, even in any software projects, and if you talk to any engineer and developers, they will always say, if they're a new team coming on board, oh, it's easier if we just start from scratch. Why? Because we know how to do it. It's better. I don't have to relearn what you guys did. I don't have to, create these. It's always easier to start from scratch. So in other words, that's how I see it. And that's why, you see the exponential growth. The next generation each time knows better, knows more. Why? Because you don't have those, let's call it technical debts or that inability to change as fast. And even with the generation below me, I see the way they're able to adapt is so much faster than the way I'm able to adapt. And I like to think I'm decently close to average, at least on the speed side. And I would say, okay, that was one. The second one would be AI manufacturing convergences. As we see here in 2026, companies like Lenovo are now designing and manufacturing AI servers right in India. But for India to become the world's AI hardware hub, for example, because again, we have to divide manufacturing and the AI manufacturing infrastructure, it's always better. Worst case scenario, you have the billions of dollars of assets and that the companies tend to use them. They're not just going to leave them. Maybe they will. We shall see. But a hardware habit has to solve the trust gap. Global buyers don't just want a chip or a server, they want verified chips. If India can prove the ethical origin, the carbon footprint, every component through the platform like TracePass, it becomes the most trusted partner of the world. Transparency becomes India's greatest export. But that issue also, it's not India specific, it's everywhere specific. And then I would say the third one, strategic autonomy. India's push into the semiconductors and critical minerals backed by the likes of PLI schemes is a massive geopolitical play. But digital sovereignty requires material sovereignty. By getting traceability right early, India can ensure its own supply chains are resilient to the global shocks. It moves from being a participant in global value chain to becoming an architect of trusted networks. In other words, you see countries outside of China, South Korea, Japan, etc. They're investing tremendous amounts, building facilities all over Asia, Malaysia, etc. The West needs a non-Chinese supply chain to diversify. Now, there's a bigger opportunity here. You have had the history of being able to skip learning steps, and now you have trillions of dollars from Europe and the US ready to deploy.
Good observation and guidance to us, right? Guidance to Indians for anybody who's watching or in the same field. Not touching the details, but is TracePass coming to India?
We shall see. We shall see, because currently the main focus, and it comes down to what India is focused on. It comes down to where we get as TracePass because we're focused on the US defense and automotive space primarily than the West. But we are, without speaking too openly, in active discussions with quite a few Indian companies that have a technological advantage from a satellite's perspective and a lot of other perspectives that creates coverage been in this field. A lot of companies been exploring in the rare earth side. India is a technological powerhouse. The cost benefit is there. So we are 100% going to have partners. The question is, will they be our client or will there be some client of ours? Because currently I have not engaged with any of the manufacturers or any of the supply chains. I'm engaging with India as actually what we're talking about, technological providers, skill set, data, companies that actually solve certain pieces of it, like monitoring certain supply chains from satellites, collecting data from different blockchain perspectives, etc. So I look at the West as that's where I make the money. And as I move towards the East, I look at what's going to translate that money into profit.
That's a wonderful way of looking at it.
I love to be wrong. I love Tata. I would love them to purchase, but usually what we see on the US defense and automotive side, they have more capital to allocate because they have to comply faster. But if India gets there faster, I'm 100% I move there.
And we come to the last round, rapid fire. So quick answers, whatever comes to your mind first.
Sounds good.
So let's go. One supply chain myth you desperately want to kill.
The myth is visibility is enough. Knowing where a box is doesn't matter if you can't verify the truth what's inside of it.
Okay. A hype you don't buy into at all.
The idea that AI can fix a supply chain without a foundation or verified a high fidelity physical data, AI is only as honest as its inputs. Again, rapid fire Ray Kurzweil, big AI enthusiast. I see an opportunity there, but the needed data to train these models on does not exist. That's the opportunity for TracePass.
One regulation people complain about today, but will thank tomorrow.
The digital product passport. It's a compliance hurdle today, but it will be a gold standard, brand trust and market value tomorrow. Help you underwrite your actual business continuity. So it's actually visibility into your supply chain. They're complaining. How else can you invest in me?
Okay. What's your daily morning routine?
Daily morning routine. I start with a double espresso to embrace the inevitable and beautiful chaos of scaling a startup.
Okay. Okay. The most unglamorous part of being a founder, no one wants you about.
I would say spending half of your day as a digital janitor, cleaning up decades of legacy data, building systems, adapting to new technologies, so that the elegant tech can actually function and we can actually communicate the mission and vision of the company.
Yeah.
So the admin work, tremendous amount of admin work.
I'm getting a lot of catchwords here from your conversation. Digital janitor is the new catchword.
Yeah. Meaning, don't have to communicate with anyone, just have to sit is like, okay, because I use, let's say, hypothetically speaking, Google Gemini for my AI to train it in to, create operational efficiencies because it's a tremendous tool and it will work, but somebody has to put in the right data. So in other words, until the infrastructure, it takes a little bit longer to structure it, pull the data, get the brand identity correctly. But once it's done, I type in a couple of things and within seconds, it spits out, for example, a full pitch deck. My brand identity manages my books.
Yeah. Yeah. If Trespass wasn't your startup, what widely different thing would you build?
I would build something around the circular economy architecture that exclusively uses 100% verified reclaimed high performance materials. Wildly different. This is the hottest space.
Great. So we are coming to the end of the rapid fire. You have spent years working on things most people never see: invisible materials, invisible systems, invisible trust. When people look back at your work years from now, what matters more to you? What you built or who you were while building it?
That's easy. Who I was with while I was building it. It's always the people. What I build is just the result. It's the folks that you get to work with, you spend your time with. That's why on this earth on. If you're able to, at least that's my view. If you're able to build something cool, that's only possible with the right individuals. Otherwise, how do you stay up till 1, 2, 3 a.m.? How do you able to do a lot of these things? It's impossible without a partner.
True, true. That's a good closing note for our insightful conversation now. So, Balazs, this conversation isn't about materials. It was about truth at scale because the future isn't intelligent. It needs to be accountable. Balazs
Agree.
Sarkany, is building infrastructure for a world where trust isn't assumed, it's proven. Thank you. Thank you, Balazs, for joining us.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Appreciate the opportunity.